IQ Smart Parent is made possible in part by the McCune Foundation and the Grable Foundation.
Technology keeps us connected, but new studies reveal social media can contribute to stress and depression too. On today's IQ Smart Parent, hear crucial advice to help your children build healthier online connections. Meet a teen who used digital media to help himself and his peers cope with anxiety, and discover how digital tools can treat mental health issues in kids. We're all about reducing tech stress on today's edition of IQ Smart Parent, and it starts right now. Welcome to IQ Smart Parent. I'm your host, Darieth Chisholm. No doubt about it, we are a digitally connected society, but that increased reliance on technology comes with both benefits and challenges. Our first guest is Dr. Brian Primack, and he is the director of the Center for Research on Media, Technology, and Health at the University of Pittsburgh. Thank you so much for being here today.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you recently authored a study about isolation and social media habits with young adults.
Well, what we did was we looked at 2,000 nationally representative young people between the ages of 18 and 30. And we measured how much social media they used and how socially isolated they felt. And we actually guessed, we hypothesized at the beginning, that people who used more social media would actually feel less socially isolated because they were connected to so many hundreds of friends. But we actually found exactly the opposite. We found that even when you control for a lot of different variables, the more social media someone used, the more socially isolated they felt.
Even though they were in conversations, obviously, whether through texting or emailing or even chatting, there's still a higher degree of isolation?
That's right.
How so?
And it was a linear relationship. In other words, every degree of increase in social media use was associated with an increase in the social isolation.
So if you could explain why, because I think most people would assume, well, yeah, I'm in conversations, I'm talking, but now you're saying that your findings found different. Why is that?
Yes, well, it's a very good question, and we don't entirely know because we're going to need to do a lot more work to figure it out. However, there are a few, I think, likely culprits. One is the fact that people are using so much social media today, it's about 3 hours a day on average, that this displaces time that people might be able to spend really forming in-person social relationships. And if you think about it, for the last millions of years, we have evolved to respond to social relationships with people, to hearing their voices and hearing their laughter and to touch and eye contact and that type of thing. And so it's possible that this 3 hours of social media use, and when people have even more, they have less opportunity to form real in-person relationships.
So which comes first then, the isolation and then they seek social media to try and remedy that, or is it because of the social media they're ultimately becoming more isolated?
Well, it could be either one, and as often happens in social science, it probably is a little bit of both. So one explanation might be that when you are isolated, depressed, anxious, say, you might be more likely to start using more social media because maybe you don't want to go out and see people in person. And so that certainly could be one of the mechanisms. But it also could be that once a person starts to use a lot of social media, they then tend to feel socially isolated. It may be because of that displacement effect that I mentioned before. But another possibility is that online, in the social media world, it's very easy to fall to social comparison. And it's very easy to forget that people so carefully curate all of their various pages, and that you're only seeing one photo out of 200 in this person's life. And of course, we only put that most positive face up. And so it's very, very easy for an average person to go online and feel like everybody else I know is succeeding. Everybody else is happier than I am. They're more connected than I am. And that might make me feel more socially isolated.
Would you say that your study also would suggest that we're at epidemic levels as it relates to this feeling of isolation, particularly among young people?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we are at epidemic levels of mental health issues and of isolation in general. For example, the World Health Organization just a few months ago declared that for the first time in history, the biggest cause of world disability is now depression. It just passed back problems in terms of global disability. Another headline from less than a year ago in the New York Times said that the suicide rate among young people is at a 30-year high. And this is not the kind of thing that you would expect when we're putting so much emphasis and so much research into trying to minimize those problems.
And how can parents bring this up with their kids?
I think that there are a few things that parents can do. I think it's a little bit early to give blanket recommendations just because we don't completely understand which particular social media types of usage are problematic and which are not. But I think that there are a few principles we can give parents. So one is that of balance, because if we go in and say, you're never going to use your social media accounts or your phone ever again, that's not necessarily being realistic. And it's not even being desirable, because there are so many potential positives of using devices and media. And in a lot of schools, in a lot of formal environments, it's very important to have a facility with this. So we don't want to emphasize, let's just get rid of it, because that would make us seem not approachable and not realistic. So I think that balance is one very important thing. I think that a second thing that parents can do is just to help their young people understand that there is this relationship. They can talk about studies like this, and they can ask their children or other youth, have you ever felt this way? And if that person has said, well, I've never felt this way, then you can say, what about other people your age? Do other people your age sometimes go online and think that everybody else has a great life? And they will start talking. They will say, absolutely. And that is the kind of thing, by just engaging the question, that might be able to start coming to a solution.
Great advice. Thank you so much for being here with us. Now meet a college student who opens up about his personal struggles with an anxiety disorder and discover the unique way he used digital media to help himself and his peers.
Just want to calm down 'cause it's loud in my mind. It's hurting my soul. Too much stress on my heart. Life in school, I think I'm falling apart. It's crazy.
I'd say music was there for the ride.
Someone to save me. Just looking for someone to lay in.
I use this analogy a lot. It was like I opened up my mind and poured out everything that I was thinking about. So, like, once everything is out of my mind, I felt calm. And that's why I kept coming back to music, because, like, to an anxious person, calm is like gold, you know?
Man, relief is all I'm wanting. So I just hold on.
Kai Roberts is the kind of guy you'd probably describe as driven. Driven to be the best with his music, driven to be the best with his grades. And when he entered prestigious Carnegie Mellon University as a mechanical engineering major, driven to be the best of the best.
During my sophomore year, I started like feeling this sensation. It was like a kind of a tightness in my chest. It was like a tightness. I thought it was ambition.
But it wasn't ambition. It was anxiety, one of the most common mental health problems on college campuses today.
During that summer, I started having panic attacks. It almost feels like how you would think a heart attack would feel. I basically cut myself off from people just because I didn't want people to see me anxious or see me like this or think I'm crazy. That was one of the foremost worries in my mind. It was like, I don't want people to think I'm crazy.
By the beginning of Kai's junior year, his anxiety hit the tipping point.
I would obsess with the word suicide. Like, I would see the word suicide like as an image in my mind. I was afraid of like knives. I was afraid of like windows. I was afraid of the side of buildings. It was bad.
Some downtime.
So he finally confided in his mother.
She was alarmed, and she basically said, you know, you're coming home for a leave of absence. Like, I'm picking you up right now.
He He took a semester off from college, got help from mental health professionals, and in his spare time, Kai filled tablet after tablet writing about his feelings.
I would write stories about what inspired my anxiety. It did become the medicine.
Finals week and that stress is on. Final is 40%. Studying a lesson. Question. Hands up like we're gonna celebrate.
Over the next few months, those stories turned into lyrics.
Can't recognize the lows from the highs.
And the lyrics turned into songs. Songs with titles like About Those Grades and Stressed Out.
This anxiety, it got me always on the edge. I feel like a lot of people feel like this, but just don't want to talk about it. I took it as a mission. You know, like people need to hear what mental health is. People need to hear how it feels, how to overcome it.
Kai decided to turn the songs into an album, and he called it Carnegie Cafe.
And I would just give them out for free, you know, just like I wanted to, in my mind, I really wanted to slide it under like every student's door.
He returned to the school the following semester, and now that he's graduated from CMU, Kai returns to the campus to give concerts. All the while spreading the message to open up about mental illness.
When it was time to release Carnegie Cafe, I wasn't afraid. Because I've been to the place where I was afraid all the time.
But tonight, I'ma shine in the moonlight. Made moves like Michael Jackson, so it's time for action. I go. Graduated to a party bus. I'm going to college. I had enough.
After being in such a low place, I felt like elevating others. I felt like elevating myself. I know how to live with it now, and I know how to move that energy into more positive directions, and I know how to let the anxiety work for me now.
Nearly 1 in 7 children aged 2 to 8 in the U.S. has been diagnosed with a mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. But technology can be a bridge that connects children to crucial mental health services. Here to tell us more about this is Dr. Lana Yarosh of the University of Minnesota. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So as a computer scientist, you focus on something called social computing. What is that?
So social computing is taking what we know about people and how they connect with each other and using that to build more compelling technologies. Now, in my case, I focus on designing technologies that enhance social relationships to help build stronger families and to enhance health and well-being.
What are some of the barriers or challenges that you find in doing this?
I think that one of the hardest things is to design technology that actually understands the nuances of how people connect and that both addresses the positives and negatives of a particular technology. So as you may have heard before, not all technology that is meant for social connection is necessarily a positive for people. And so actually evaluating that and understanding what your technology does in practice can be a challenge.
How do you evaluate it when you think about it? I mean, kids all over the world are using technology, and obviously you're really concerned about their use of it. So how do you best to determine the therapies for that?
So what I would say is that we follow a user-centered process. What that means is that instead of just building what we think will work well, we actually start with what the kids would want. We actually involve them as designers in the process. The technology that comes out of that, we test that with a smaller group to see how it affects their lives, to really understand what's happening.
What you've also come to understand is the value that online therapists and people who are available to help online play in the role of this. How does that work?
So right now, if somebody wants to be in therapy, they kind of have, you know, the traditional way is you go to a therapist, you schedule an appointment, and you come in maybe once a week or several times a week. Now, the issue with that is that the skills you learn in therapy may be really difficult to apply in the real world. So for example, a kid may talk to a therapist about being anxious about a test. And they may learn some cognitive reframing skills, ways to think about it differently so that they don't have as much anxiety or so that they deal with their anxiety in a positive way. But they learn those skills in therapy, and so what do they do when it's actually time to go to school, when they're in a school bus and they're feeling that anxiety? Well, technology can provide an opportunity to actually help them practice those skills in the moment. It might be something like an app that works them through a checklist or a set of steps to help them reduce their anxiety, or other ways of kind of connecting with all those same lessons that they learned in therapy.
Have you found that there are certain conditions that are better treated with online therapies and an online therapist?
So currently, online therapies and online therapists are still something that's really under investigation. So what we know right now is that they don't work nearly as well as actual therapy, but they can be a stopgap measure. They can expand the skills that kids learn in therapy to the real world. And additionally, for kids that are not able to go to a therapist, maybe they can't afford it. Maybe there's kind of a lot of social stigma around mental health. Or maybe they live in a rural area and there aren't enough therapists available. For them, it can be this stopgap measure that is better than nothing, for sure.
So you worked on this project with another partner about building happiness skills. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So we tend to think about happiness as something that either you're happy or you're not. But actually, science shows that there's these specific skills that can be taught that can help people be happier, even kids. So the 3 skills that have been shown to be teachable are gratitude, mindfulness, and problem solving. For example, reframing how you're thinking about a particular situation. And so my colleague, Dr. Steven Schuler, and I conducted a study where we worked with middle schoolers to teach them these skills and then actually help them design the technology interventions that they think would help them practice those skills.
What types of technologies did they develop?
Oh my God, these kids are so creative. So they build robots, they build apps, they build smart backpacks and wearables. They thought about a lot of really interesting technologies. Though I'd say that one thing they didn't really think about were programs and websites, which is kind of what's currently out there. So clearly the kids are thinking one step ahead of us in terms of the technologies that they're building.
And an interesting name for it, happiness inventors.
Yes, so they were inventing their own happiness ideas. That's right.
How did children respond to this? Were you able to get the sense from that they were really truly engaged with this?
Oh, they were quite engaged, and one of the things we did is we actually asked them to document their process. So they created these really interesting videos about the ideas that they came up with, the drawings they came up with. They all kept invention notebooks, and they actually, in the beginning, we all signed a contract to make sure that if any of these ideas goes big and makes millions of dollars, they were all going to split the money evenly. So that was an important part of the process as well.
Well, that's one thing to make you happy, that's for sure. What did you learn the most about this experience with the children?
So I think one of the things that was really interesting to me was the extent to which the things they were inventing were not just websites and apps, were things that could be worn, interesting interactive pieces of furniture, backpacks, new watches, kiosks that live in the world. So to me, this says that instead of thinking about online therapies as sites that you visit in the same way that you might visit a doctor, maybe we should be thinking about them as these tools that live in the real world alongside with the kids and are there for them whenever they need it.
Wow, very interesting. What a great project.
Thank you.
I would assume that you'd do it over and over again if you could.
Yes, so that's the hope. That's the hope.
Great, and someone along the way gets big and has a great invention. All right, well, stay with us. We want to get some more information from you. But first, we all know it's tough to limit technology for teens. But parents, young children need careful screen time policies as well. Hear what the experts have to say about it.
According to an American Academy of Pediatrics study about children and digital media, kids' television viewing habits have slowly decreased over the past 2 decades. But kids' digital and mobile screen time has risen dramatically. The study revealed that 75% of kids ages 0 to 8 had access to a mobile device. Another study showed even more alarming statistics, noting that most 2-year-olds used mobile devices on a daily basis, and over 90% of 1-year-olds had already used a mobile device. To keep up with this rapidly changing technology, the American Academy of Pediatrics updated its guidelines for media use by young children. From birth to 18 months, no screen time at all, except for video chatting. From 18 to 24 months, include parental guidance and reinforcement. Experts also advise parents to keep bedrooms, mealtimes, and parent-child playtimes screen-free. They say parents shouldn't feel pressured to introduce technology early in a child's life. And finally, they suggest parents become media mentors who can model healthy media habits and work with their children to choose and make media that matters.
A 2017 study of technology and media found that almost half of the parents surveyed said regulating their child's screen time is a constant battle. So we're going to close out today's program by helping families find a healthy balance between in-person and digital connections. Dr. Lana Yarosh of the University of Minnesota is still with us, and Dr. Brian Primack is back on the couch with us as well. And so let's really look at, what are some of the positives that can come out of social media habits and spending a lot of time on social media?
Well, I think sometimes it can increase opportunities for connecting. It can be that in between when you can't be there in person with somebody. Also, different social media is different. Doing video chat with somebody, for example, is much more immersive than just exchanging chat messages online, for example. So we should keep that in mind as well.
I agree, and in fact, we did a study recently, we just presented at the American Public Health Association conference that supported that and said that when people are friends with people that they don't know outside of real life, that seems to be associated with more negative outcomes. But when people are friends mostly with people that they do know in real life and that they have substantial relationships with, then those are actually the potential relationships that social media can deepen.
Without a doubt, not to mention the fact that it keeps us connected worldwide. And I have friends around the world that I spend time with on Skype and can literally connect and get to know what's going on in Hong Kong and in Austria. And so to think that we're deepening people's experience of other cultures through the use of technology also has to be a positive.
Absolutely, and this also goes back to something that Lana was talking about, which is the fact that there are different ways of using social media. And I think we need to be cautious of studies like mine, honestly, that look at just social media use as an overall blanket variable. The fact is we need to understand a little bit more about the specific types of use that are more valuable. And so the example you're giving, Darieth, is a perfect one. Well, what about when you use social media to learn something? What about when you use social media to expand horizons? That very well might be associated with positive outcomes. Using it in other ways might be associated with negative outcomes. I think that one of the issues is that in this balance, we often are drawn to the ways of using social media that are not as positive, because it is very much in the interests of social media platforms to keep eyeballs there as long as possible. And so the content is very, very sticky, and it's not necessarily always being used in a positive way. It's keeping you looking at advertisements and spending time that maybe you should be spending doing other things that might be more valuable.
And so then how do parents drive their children to really using healthy social media habits and using the types of technology that, as we said, can foster better relationships, gain a deeper understanding?
So I think actually parents already have all the right intuitions for doing this. If your kid is going out the door, you might ask them, where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And you can ask similar questions about technology use. What are you going to be using your phone for? Who are you going to be interacting? How are you going to be interacting with them? I think one challenge of media is that it's not very transparent. If you see your kid on the phone, you can't really tell what they're doing. But asking them about it, actually having those conversations, and having them know that what they do online is also part of their life and something that they are responsible for developing good habits about.
And what about this issue of constantly checking? We can't leave our devices too far away where we think we're missing something. How do we help kids that they're just motivated by trying to figure out what did they miss?
Parents need to model for their children. And so, as with other types of parenting, if we are constantly checking our phones, then our children are going to learn, to do what we do and not what we say. So I think it's very important for us to also make a conscious effort to say, I need to look at my own behavior around this.
Any final thoughts?
Well, as a technologist, I certainly don't want to turn people off technology altogether. I think there are a lot of opportunities, and we can do a lot of exciting work in this space to really create technologies that do help people connect. I think that's the future. And I think in the meantime, it is about finding that balance and finding that good path that works for families.
I think it's important to remember that there are many different ways to interact with media of various different types. And you can think of them very, very broadly as being a consumer or being a creator. And so one of the other things that we can do related to that is to help our young people be more creators, help them interact with things where they are actually being somehow involved in the development of a video game. If they're interested in video games, this is maybe still a way of being involved with video games. But here, let me show you this cool website called Scratch that MIT produced that can actually help you make your own video game.
Good point to end on. Thank you so much for being here today. And we hope that today's program will help you and your family use technology to support a happier, healthier, and less stressful lifestyle. Join us again next time for more IQ Smart Parent.
Want to learn more about IQ Smart Parent? Visit us online at iqsmartparent.org for more episodes and additional tools and resources. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest to share your thoughts on being a 21st century parent. IQ Smart Parent is made possible in part by the McCune Foundation and the Grable Foundation.